What's up, guys? So Raiden is rerunning this patch, and she's probably still one of my favorite designs in Genshin, although I don't get to play her too much these days. I think last time I seriously played her was in the very first Stygian, which is over a year ago at this point. Unfortunately, one of the obvious reasons is with her initial release being almost 5 years ago, and with all the power creep that's happened in the game within the last 2 years, I would say around here with 4.3 with Chevrus's release, very good teammate for Raiden. Raiden was still pretty strong in this era, but the last 2 years had not been kind. But what's crazy is Raiden being so popular, despite that she managed to dodge buffs for the past 2 years, unlike a lot of old characters. No Luna charge buff or stellar conduct buff like Yae Miko got, and later on in this video we're going to talk about buff ideas. So it does make this banner bittersweet, since I think it's only for people who really like her design and don't mind spending primos for it rather than gameplay reasons these days. However, as one of my favorite characters, I thought today would be a very fun day to take her out for a spin, and we can see what gameplay you can do in 2026. Maybe not the hardest endgame possible, but we could still get some stuff done. So whilst Raiden hasn't got direct buffs in the past year, she has recently benefited from some upgrades, specifically Durin and the hexerei buffs like fischl. Overload teams with Chevrus is still the main core you want to do for Raiden. Durin is basically an upgraded Xiangling, who was always a very good teammate for Raiden. Durin does have the off-field burst damage, whilst giving a bit of red shred. Fischl becoming a decent buffer now. Originally, when the hexerei buffs came out, I did find iansan to be better than fischl here. However, a while ago, we did get a celestial gift set, which is a big 40% damage bonus extra buff you get with a double hexerei team. So I think now that would make fischl better. Also, Nicole's released recently. She's also quite a good teammate for Raiden, potentially best in slot. However, you do run into one issue of synergy, which is if you're playing Nicole, Nicole has to be played in triple pyro teams, which is very bad for Raiden's energy, which is not going to be an issue in the Abyss. But in the Overworld and in Stygian, it makes a team like this very tough to play, taking ages to batch you Raiden for her first burst. So let's try her out in the Abyss. These are the builds I'm going to be using. Noblesse on Chevrus, Celestial Gift on Durin. These are the builds I'm going to be using. Stringless on fischl, Raiden with her signature, Raiden C2 obviously. And this is the build I've got. It's pretty good, not the best. So I have to say, I did actually use Raiden for my first clear on day one. I used Raiden on the bottom half. Technically, it's designed for a Luna charge team, but Raiden's still going to destroy that second half. So unfortunately, Magokenki is a bit of a staller, to say the least. But we can get rid of this first phase with one hit. Wait around. He does fly around a lot, but he's quite easy. The second enemy, I do like Raiden's synergy with fischl though, because you get to spam fischl's burst every rotation. It just gives a bit of extra damage. Unfortunately, without Luna, you have to go through this guy's HP twice. Can we get him? Can we get him? There we go. Perfect. The sad thing about Stygian is Raiden naturally fits Abyss way better, because you're fully charging your team's energy between waves. So what do we have in Chamber 2 again? Oh, this guy. Weird thing with this Abyss. It's like, usually this would have been a single boss chamber. I would have almost one rotated that. But now, look. 1 out of 7? Luckily, each heart attack should be able to destroy these. There we go. Now, unfortunately, with an easier Abyss like this, you can see the power level difference between modern teams and outdated teams. So I mean, look how quickly my Sandrone team is destroying this abyss. Final boss. Luckily, an overlord team. I can just keep him stun locked. Oh god, we got this guy. So even though this guy's designed for electro charge, as long as you have electro in your team, you can still deal good damage to him. You just gotta try and break the shield quickly. There we go. And that was a very comfortable abyss. So again, in 2026, clearing Abyss 12 is not the biggest achievement, but I mean, it's still Genshin's original endgame. Next thing you guys probably want to see is some DPS dummy comparisons of my teams. So first of all, this was my best Raiden team a few months ago with iansan. I think this was about 120,000 DPS. And again, this is with C2 Raiden, although I do have to say, I think a lot of people have Raiden's constellations if you're still playing her. And before I show the DPS dummy, I do have to say, Raiden is one of those cursed old characters. You can look at my crit rate there, only 74. Now 74 crit rate on Raiden is actually a very good build, but these days, most modern characters, you generally should be aiming for about 100 crit rate. So DPS army is very consistent with Raiden, and characters like this where you're nowhere near 100 crit rate. Does it end up that consistent? I don't know. Let's find out. So Raiden rotation is usually trying to get 6 charge attacks into her combo. It's okay if you only get 5 though. So a bit of 120,000 DPS. Now let's see if I change iansan for fischl. The healing does go down with fischl, but the battery does go up. See, I'm actually getting close to 130k DPS here. That is not bad. I might burst so like around 330k to 350k. So unlike with iansan or characters like Sarah or Nicole, this team is a bit split DPS wise between Raiden, fischl and Durin. But the overall team's damage is very nice. Is 130,000 DPS with a C2 Raiden in 2026 enough to do the hardest content? First of all, that's not even a good question, because the hardest Asian content usually have to have a favored archetype fighting against the shield bosses. You want Superconduct or Bond of Life or Luna Charge or Night Soul. Raiden being an old character doesn't have that going in her favor. On top of that, the DPS admittedly is not quite as high as the newer teams. But for an old character, for an old team with 2 4-stars, I'm still impressed by this. Let's see Nicole next. Now just quickly, what you can actually do with Nicole, because Nicole is really good with Celestial Gift, is I can actually give Durin a damaging set again. Rising Winds with this ratio looks decent enough. 3% slightly over cap crit rate, it doesn't matter. I've got Nicole on Celestial Gift, and let me not give her her signature. Let's give her Skyward Atlas. My attack is going to be well over 4k, so that's capped out. So here's Nicole's burst, and then as you'll see with Raiden, 320k. So in fact, because Nicole's buffs take 3 seconds of ramp up, it means Raiden's burst isn't actually fully buffed. So the buffs aren't actually higher than fischl. But because of Raiden's long burst animation, the charge attacks will be getting fully buffed. And as you can see, just a base Nicole with Sky with Atlas is actually a DPS improvement over fischl. And you get the shield, but like I said, Raiden as a solo Electro, it's going to take you a while to get your burst. But once you have the burst, it should be smooth sailing. So that's more of an issue with Stygian rather than other types of content. Is that 5k DPS worth getting Nicole for? I don't think so, but maybe you already have Nicole for other reasons. Maybe you also like Nicole's shield, but if you're talking about Raiden specifically, probably getting her weapon or getting C3 or some sort of other investment will probably be higher DPS. But it's nice to know. I guess Nicole technically has the highest DPS for Raiden. But on to the interesting part of this video, which is that this is clearly not enough. It's not enough for me. It's probably not enough for you. So given that Raiden has sadly been one of the characters not to be buffed yet, how would you guys buff her? So what I did, I made a community post on YouTube a week ago asking for your guys' thoughts, and we got a lot of comments here. I thought it'd be fun to read out. Now, before we get into your suggestions, in my opinion, damage aside, because obviously any buff will buff your character's damage, but I think Raiden has 3 big flaws in the modern game. Number 1, Stygian being a big endgame focus and it has a 0 energy start. It does make playing Raiden very tedious. Once Raiden does get her burst Stygian, it's smooth sailing, but getting that first burst, even in a double electro stream, is very annoying. And the thing with this is, these days, not many modern characters are burst reliant anymore. So I think this would have to be solved with some sort of buff. In fact, in one of Sino's recent buffs, he had big burst energy issues, but they actually let you enter kind of like a mini burst mode when you use his skill. So they could even just copy paste the buffs and let Raiden enter her burst mode just for a few seconds. Another issue that's happened over the last couple of years has been a lot of modern enemies have shields or have some sort of shield kind of modes. And when they go into phases like this, Raiden's elemental skill doesn't actually hit, but that is very crippling, especially when a lot of shields rely on hit count and you have to deal as much hits as possible within a certain period. And the third big flaw, arguably the most important, I think, Raiden was designed to synergize really well with off-fielders with high energy costs. It was one of the big reasons why she was so popular with characters like Xiangling or Xingqiu. But the issue with that is, as we said, Hoyo doesn't make too many characters burst reliant these days. That also impacts Raiden because they rarely make off-fielders these days. And if Raiden doesn't regularly get new options, then that is a problem. Probably the most recent release has been Duran. Even then, he doesn't perfectly synergize. His energy cost is only 70. So they would have to do something where they either change Raiden's kit to simultaneously strengthen older characters that are very burst reliant, or they would have to release more burst reliant off-fielders. I don't really see them doing that, so I think they would just need to add some buffs into Raiden's kit, making older off-fielders be more viable with Raiden. With that being said, let's read your guys' suggestions. One of the first comments here is making her skill work against enemy shields. Yep, that has to be fixed. Man, it's almost like I copied your guys' answers. She should get the Sino special and go into her burst state with the skill. I mean, they have the template. They could just copy paste it. Even just thematically, being able to spend more time with the sword rather than this polearm would be very nice. Her kit is very similar to Moika's kit. In fact, Moika kind of is just a modern Raiden. You fill up Moika's energy whilst rotating through your team, and then she has a big nuke. Of course, Moika's multipliers are just so much bigger than Raiden's. On top of that, you can react with her multipliers to make them even bigger. And then you have a bunch of optimization combos that you can learn and master to get even more damage. Raiden doesn't have too much combo optimization. So they could use Moika as some sort of framework just to try and get Raiden closer to her. The feel-wise, they definitely feel similar, and they're both Archons. And this guy is saying similar to the Sino thing, but you can just press a hold E on Raiden for that. So that could be cool. Like Raiden's tab E would be the normal off-field thing. And then she could have a hold form that is summons a mini very short sword mode. Allow her skill coordinated electro attacks to deal damage and apply electro even when the enemy doesn't receive. Yeah, this is another one. This one I have seen a lot over the past few years, which is making you benefit even more from building energy recharge. Raiden already does double dip with energy recharge. Oh yeah, if you have Raiden's signature engulfing lightning, you basically triple dip on energy recharge. But the reason why people say they want extra crit rate is because, like I said in the start of the video, even with a good build, it's impossible to reach 100 crit rate. Marika, on the other hand, she gets an artifact set that gives you 40 crit rate. It's not hard to be at 100. Raiden, similarly to Marika, does need something similar. This is something that I was implying as well. Maybe not these exact buffs, but giving some sort of benefit to the off-fielders that you're playing her with can help if they're not going to release modern off-fielders. Make C6 in her base kit. Well, the problem with Raiden always was that her C2 and C3 were very good. They even still kind of hold up today with just how strong constellations they are, but most of our other constellations are very weak, which is why like even Wales you should just stop at C3. This C6 like giving no damage increase and just reducing your party's burst cooldowns. C6 these days are insane damage increases. Come on, Raiden has been one of the all-time best sellers in Genshin, one of those iconic characters. If they do buff Raiden, they should want to benefit from spenders. Sad Yae Miko isn't much of a buff for Raiden. Well, I think that ship has sailed now. Do they want to make Raiden also stellar conduct? I don't think so. So Raiden would have to be something new entirely. Is anyone here talking about a new reaction? Triple her damage. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. Tripling her damage would be way too much, especially looking at my DPS. If a buff increases her damage by like 60%, then that's already over 200,000 DPS. I do have C2 though. Maybe it could be higher than 60%, just so it makes the C0 Raidens more viable. This guy had a bit more of a Genshin style kit idea. Nearby party members have their overload electro charge, so electro reaction damage increase based on Raiden's ER. That also does work. Constellation change upon E-cast instantly fills party members burst capacity by 33%. That is very cool for Stygian. I would like to see her double down as a burst driver and battery. Well, the thing with that is they would have to release modern off-fielders, which I don't know how consistently they're going to do that. So as we will discuss, you need a bit of both. You need to increase Raiden as a hyper carry, but also give some sort of incentive, but they can't give full incentive for her to be a driver because they're not going to release that many off-fielders, unfortunately. When entering combat, give flat energy to herself affected by the energy recharge. These are all ways they can help her in Stygian and the overworld. I like these. The other thing is though, like I've been hinting at, with how popular Raiden C2 and C3 is, like how do you even balance a buffed Raiden? Because you have to remember, her C2 is like 50 to 60% of a damage increase, and I'm assuming they don't really balance buff characters around C2. So if they balanced her at C0 to be, let's say how strong Nefa was at her release, or like how strong Flynn's was at his release, that will make C0 Raiden pretty good for modern standards. But then you're timesing your damage by like 1.5 to 1.7. Given that probably half the Raiden mains have these C2s or C3s, that would actually make their Raidens insane. Most of the older characters they have buffed, except for Wriothesley, I guess, maybe even Klee, a lot of them haven't been the most popular constellation characters. If Raiden was to get buffed, she would be one of the first buffed characters where their constellations were very popular. I do think most people agree that she does need to get 100% crit rate. Be the god of sub DPS driving by having her resolve translate into teammates multipliers. For example, 60 resolve could buff a teammate's motion value by 1.7. This is a very good suggestion, and it's basically what I was saying. So in order to solve the issue of them not releasing that much burst run and off-field DPSs, Raiden giga buffing characters like Durin will make them feel like a modern sub DPS, and the older ones like Xiangling would feel probably even stronger than the current Durin. So most people are in agreement. I don't think many people are talking about turning Raiden into a Yae Miko and focusing her specifically on one reaction, and they've kind of already shut that door unless they want to add more characters into stellar conduct or some other reaction, which I don't think is likely. So That's nice. I would like to see more buffs in Genshin that are more universal focused. Most people agree you need to solve her energy issues in Stygian. You need to get a 100% crit rate. Maybe flat energy just to make her a bit more Stygian proof. She does need to elevate old sub DPSs. It's almost like, I think most people like Raiden's playstyle, but they just want to double down more into that and make her playstyle fit better with the modern game. And look, ultimately, do I know when the next buffs are coming? No. Do I know who's gonna get buffed next? No. Is there a possibility Raiden never gets buffed? Probably not, but it could be years away. So maybe this is all copium. Maybe you guys found this interesting discussion. Raiden is still one of the most iconic characters in the game. You can also pull for gameplay reasons. Her gameplay is cool, but not for gameplay like end game reasons. I think that's clear. She's a very old character, but as we've seen, it only takes one patch for an old character to basically be a new character. Maybe a couple patches from now, Raiden feels like a brand new character, and pulling her this patch was like a Bitcoin investment. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and let me know if you want to add to the debate. Let me know if you have more buffed ideas, and thanks for watching, guys.